My name is Eileen Durfee, and I'm the founder and CEO of Creatrix Solution, and I have 10 patents related to health and wellness. And my whole life changed when I met a man, a chiropractor, Dr. Sugar. I had grown 9 inches in 3 months, and I was run over by a car. And so I became very interested in posture and restoring the S-shaped spine. And there's a lot of information on the spine as it relates to athletic performance, pain. It's like, out of everyone here, I'd like to ask, have you ever had back pain or strain or felt range of motion impairment? If anyone hasn't experienced any of that, raise your hand. It's, back pain and structural problems are an epidemic. And so what Dr. Sugar did is he was very into sports, and he always wondered why linemen with a big back curve always overpowered linemen with a flat back. So he put together a team of experts and conducted a study over 20 years. Now, he died in 2016, and his course materials, there's a sheet that was written by him by his death that was just handed out to you. You can take time to read it. I have 20 minutes, so I can't go into all of it. But basically, other than Leonardo da Vinci and Borelli in 1680 that had calculated shear forces and compression in the vertebrae of the spine, they had never done the complete spine, nor had they done an analysis of someone jumping, running, hitting, in locomotion to find out what the superior spine was. So after the results of this study, I got math to Cornell University, the National Strength and Conditioning Association went over the math, the Army was involved, the U.S. Olympic team was involved. In 2003, it was approved for continuing education credits. Because of copyrights, that's no longer available since his death. And my mission is to be able to help people, everyone, athletes, get the S-shaped spine, and they found out that they could restore the S-shaped spine in 12 weeks, doing 5 exercises, as long as your vertebrae were not naturally or surgically fused. Now, he worked with, one of the people on the team was Ron O'Neill, an athletic trainer with the New England Patriots. And they started out in the medical training room, and then they went to the weight training room. And it was during the years of the 90s through the 2000 where they won all the Super Bowls. And basically what they could do is they could keep the player from fatiguing. So it was pretty amazing. Now, when you search the internet for S-shaped spine, you're going to find 2 references. Yeah, it's good, but nobody tells you how to get it. After they determined mathematically what the best shape was, they also figured out how to give it to people. But the theory is basically like a teeter-totter. With the S-shaped spine, your 30, 60, 90-degree curve is like a Roman arch, and it's strong. And you're like a shock absorber where you're pumping nutrients in and out of the discs, and your muscles, you're expending the least amount of energy in gravity and movement. And so it's just like the equilibrium of torque formula. If you're going to move a boulder, you have a long bar, and you put the fulcrum underneath there, and then you can move. Take 100 pounds and move 500. So when you understand the spinal lever system that was brought out in this 20-year study, is you've got a poor mechanical advantage and a good mechanical advantage. So somebody with an S-shaped spine, they analyzed that L2, L3, that interspinalis muscle is going 25 pounds per second. And it's very important to note about the bone surfaces at the fulcrum being 180. Because then there's no translation of shear, because posterior shear is our enemy for dislocation. Now here's someone where you're 3.5 inches more. Maybe part of that is at the hips, maybe part of it is forward head posture. But you're going to 200 300 pounds per second. So that's just an L2, L3. Now let's look at the hips, the hamstring. That bad posture, you're 843 pounds per second, when the hamstring is not for posture. You know, if everybody stood up here and felt your hamstring, I'd say probably 90% of you have tight hamstrings. That means you don't have the S-shaped spine. But that hamstring is going to shorten your stride length. You're not going to run as fast, and you're not going to get the fast twitch muscle requirement for speed either. And look at the hip, 146 pounds of shear, you got 924 pounds going down the leg. Compared to the S-shaped spine, 0 hamstring effort. That person's going to jump higher, they're going to run faster. 50 pounds of shear, 87 pounds. So all these knee injuries and everything like that, let's give people the S-shaped spine so we can get all this force and shear off the body parts. The neck, you know, that's the other thing is if you've got, you know, blunt force coming against the head, if you don't have the good posture, where when you're in movement and you're like two linemen, the guy with the low back, when he's in flexion, like on the scientific poster back there, it lines up and your facets lock in. It's like a vice. It's not relying on the multifidus or the interspinalis to keep those vertebrae in place. Likewise, the guy that's locked in like that, he's translating all of this energy and momentum through his spine into his opponent, where the guy without the deep curves, the L3, 4, and 5 is where the posterior shear comes. So what we want to do is we want to have the teeter-totter, the S-shaped spine, eliminate posterior shear, so we can actually have less body parts involved in movement. And on that poster back there, it talks about the two linemen, the number of muscles, the number of joints involved. When you have less of those, you're going to have less injuries. You're going to avoid injuries. But this neck issue shows the differences of why the S-shaped spine. That's why you want it. So from birth, you're a C-shape. The old man on the cane, he's a C-shape. So you've got restricted movement. It takes 18 years to develop the spine. And Dr. Serger taught the exercises that we're doing with our athletes that are destroying the S-shaped spine. You can go to spinalfitness.com. It goes to the exercises, free PDF guides. I've rewritten all of these information. So the New England Patriots and when Marcus Paul went to the New York Giants, he took that. When Mike Wysick went to the Cowboys and Marcus Paul went over there, they all started teaching these things to the players to protect that S-shaped spine. Here's the football. That's where I was showing you the weakness, the posterior shear, how you're not going to transfer that momentum, that strength into the player. And this talks about the first-class levers, you know, how they lock up each vertebrae, the point of contact. Then it's stable. So that goes into the causes of instability. So this is the example of the lineman. You've got to have less muscle effort, less fatigue, less body parts involved to prevent injuries. That's what we want to do. A lot of the talks here are all about repairing injuries, but we can get the player in a shape to have a mechanical advantage. It was proven in that study it's a 15-to-1 mechanical advantage to have the S-shaped spine. So here's more information, the differences, the increase, you know, so your L5, S1 injuries are coming because you have the posterior shear. Don't have that big low back curve. And this is what you can get from the Library of Congress right here. It's protected by copyrights. That is, you know, I don't know, 500-600 pages of math and all the study from the 20 years is in that document. Now, part of my talk was how do you get the S-shaped spine? So back to the lever and the fulcrum, you know, how we want to have that balanced teeter-totter in the spine so we're not having tremendous amounts of compression and shear force and muscle expenditure. But when we do the exercises, what we want to do is we want to create absolute tension and we want to create leverage, and we use that fulcrum to set the spine up as if it already had good posture, so it's impossible for the posterior shear, even in a bad back, to happen on that. Dr. Sugar taught no more sit-ups. Without the power cushion, it's got a groove. You can, when you come to see our booth, you can see it, but it's got a groove, so the spine is float, so your body weight catches the transverse process, so it's like you're shearing bones into the right location, like a train on a train track. But then it's imbalanced. You're putting anterior weight on, force, to where it's absolute tension. That's the external obliques, that it's working there. And then, you know, you set up at a 45-degree angle where the bones are all locked into place with the facets. And that induces curvature, so you get local posture improvement, but also segmental posture improvement. And then because Dr. Sugar thought that, you know, maybe you might have rotation of a joint, then you do rolling. Now this is different than all other foam rollers. It comes in different densities. It's got a groove, it's fine, floats, and it's not crunched like the plexus wheel or the chirp wheel. It floats, and then the transverse process, so that opens up and hydrates every joint. It goes from the low back clear to the neck. Now this is the absolute wonderful thing, the pelvic tilt. Because of the leverage on the iliac bones with the weight, and you're holding your upper body back so the rectus muscle is completely tight. When you do the pelvic tilt, it shears back L5 on L4. Luke Rockhold, UFC fighter, had that disc herniation. Joe Rogan wanted to get spinal surgery. I went, got him on the power cushion, taught him how to use it. In 2 weeks doing these steps, we got rid of that herniated disc and he fought. Of course, he lost it in Salt Lake. But that is amazing what it does, the pelvic tilt. And then there's Luke right there with the neck shaper. And the other thing is we've got, you know, especially with UFC fighters, they're like this, you know, they got all that, you know, compression going on. And so, which this is different than the iron neck, because iron neck doesn't induce curvature, and we're wanting to have that curvature so we can have least muscle expenditure, best flexibility. So it's just like looking up, and it's like nodding C5. And, you know, I was told that that should have been called back shaper instead of just a neck shaper, because when your short postural muscles, they're weak, they fatigue, your long muscles start taking over the job. It's like you'll have people with forward head posture and their low back's tight. You can do this and push back. When you come back there, we'll show you how to do the exercise. Your low back muscles will completely loosen up, and it trains you to keep your head over your pelvis, so you're not forward, so your, you know, interspinalis isn't firing at 200 pounds per second. Then the other thing is when you're 18 years old, your body's done putting nourishment and development into your bones. The size, the ossification, the size of the discs are already there, and the body's meant to have that S-shaped spine so that nutrients can flow. You have that pumping action to get the nutrients in and out of the discs. Well, so your discs are like a hard, dried out sponge. So Dr. Scherner taught us to sit and do this back twist, you know, where your head's up and you're doing this rotation so that you can change that disc to a gelled state. Then he used to have us fold bath towels and roll it with the groove in the middle for the spinous, and then you can change the size of the towels, and then you put it under, you know, 1 inch above your iliac, and then you feel under the head, and you just lay there. And for 20 minutes, most people can't start off with that. We have 5 different diameters, 3 different densities, because everybody has a different shape of their spine, and we want to encourage curvature. But when you're laying there with inactivity for 20 minutes, literally, because you can't change muscle attachments to bones, those muscles let go, and literally you hear your bones crack just laying there because of these grooves. It's like segmental traction with your own body weight. And then you can continually improve those. And so those are like the 5 steps to getting, you know, the S-shaped spine. So the main thing that I want to bring to the world is that everyone can have the S-shaped spine. Now, our children, from the time they're in kindergarten on, they're being given these exercises, they're having their big, heavy backpacks, they're on their phones constantly. No one's getting the S-shaped spine. I had a 4-hour layover in an airport, and it was like finding Waldo. I'm looking for the S-shaped spine everywhere. I found 2 people in 4 hours. Now, Dr. Sugar used to help the Patriots pick football players, because you can have a football player that's got a lot of talent, that's got a terrible spine, that's gonna get injured. So Dr. Sugar helped them spot the people with the S-shaped spine that would last longer and be better athletes, and then he trained them how to give everyone that S-shaped spine. And so if you go to spinalfitness.com, it's going to forward it to my main company website, Creatrix Solutions. There's 5 PDF guides that you can download. And I was working with the Las Vegas Raiders last month, and the fullback, Jacob Johnson, there's a video of him, at my booth. Basically, Dr. Sugar would, do an evaluation, have players raise their arms up, forward, the way that they would turn their head, how far they could bend over. There was just different metrics when they jumped, if they landed in the same spot, or forward or backward. He could evaluate a player based on those metrics. But this is how effective this equipment is. And that's why it was used in the NFL teams. We took Jacob Johnson, had him bend over, hinge at the hips, had him turn his head. We do have a jump height measure and a speed measure, because it increases jump height and speed as well. But that's all we had in the hotel room. And we had him do 4 of the 5. We didn't have him do the twist and lay over the rolls. We had him do 4 of those steps, only 10 reps each with that leverage. Here he is, he's got a 6-pack, and he's on there doing the pelvic tilt. You can see him going like this. He's not used to exercising those muscles. And when he got off of there and he bent over, he gained 8 inches in reach. His hamstrings were no longer tight, they were completely loose. And he's able to turn his head in either direction, at least an inch. And his back, when he was doing it, he heard it crack and everything else, because with that groove, it's like guiding it into a better location. And so, the S-shaped spine is what you need. We can give it to players, and it'll immediately increase their athletic ability. And low back pain alone is a $100 billion a year problem. It's like we need to be giving everyone the S-shaped spine.